Welcome to the African Weekly Roundup, a program every week here on HORUFADHI Media where I discuss the latest news and events across the African continent. I'm Sultan Mohammed, your host and producer here on HORUFADHI Media. We hope you find this program very informative. Please like, share, and for similar content, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media Group. Also, do subscribe to HORUFADHI Media Group's second channel known as HORUFADHI TV, where you are currently watching this program and where you can find other exclusive programs such as Behind the Scenes and Mahahir Salam, among others. And last but not least, do follow myself, Sultan Mohammed, Suleiman Hashi, Yasin Abdi, and the wider HORUFADHI Media team on our social media platforms that should appear on the screen any moment. Let's get straight into the headlines and over to Kenya, where Kenya's Supreme Court ruled this afternoon unanimously to uphold the presidential result in a scathing judgment that blasted former presidential candidate and opposition leader Raila Odinga and his team's accusation of election rigging. Now, Chief Justice Martha Koome, who heads the 7-member Supreme Court, left no ambiguity about the court's position on key arguments brought by Odinga's team and others. She dismissed some allegations that the polling station results forms had been tampered with as a double hearsay and one as no more than hot air and a wild goose chase. Now, she went on to say some of the computer logs presented as evidence were either from logs arising from 2017 or some that were outright forged. Now, Koome raised the possibility of perjury, noting that the two individuals who initially filed these reports, allegedly on behalf of polling station agents, had not actually even spoken to the agents themselves. She also called for reforms at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, or IEBC, saying that the boardroom rupture, as she put it, between the commissioners had undermined public confidence in the commission. Now, 4 of the 7 election commissioners had disowned Ruto's win minutes before it was formally announced, saying that the tally process was opaque. But Chief Justice Koome highlighted that the dissenting commissioners had previously participated in the tallying without any concerns being raised. Now, following the verdict, opposition leader Raila Odinga tweeted that he would respect the ruling even though he disagreed with it. And this has eased fears in Kenya of repeated violence that has been seen in disputed votes in 2017 and way back in 2007. Now, several public figures and supporters of Mr. Odinga welcomed the judgment, saying it bolstered the court's reputation for independence. Now, there were no immediate signs of protests in Odinga's stronghold of Kisumu City or the low-income neighborhoods of Nairobi. Now, Kenya has been engulfed in a political family battle as the 2 most powerful political families fought hard to maintain the status quo against the outsider Mr. Ruto. Now, the history between Odinga and outgoing President Uhuru Kenyatta, who currently have an alliance but were historically arch enemies, underscores the tangled ties between elite families and the supremacy of personality over politics in Kenyan politics. Now, Kenyatta is the son, for instance, of the first president of Kenya, and Odinga is the son of the first vice president. Now, Ruto's was Kenyatta's vice president, but the two fell out recently, and Kenyatta ended up backing his historical arch political enemy, Mr. Odinga, in the vote. Now, over to neighboring Somalia, where another Al-Shabaab attack has killed 20 civilians, and destroyed trucks filled with relief food on Friday night in the Hiran region of the federal state of Hirshabelle in central Somalia. Now, the trucks were transporting food supplies from the regional capital of Beledweyne to a local city of Mahas. Now, state news agencies reported in Somalia that Al-Shabaab fighters had burned trucks carrying relief food to the town of Mahas and killed most of the people on board these trucks. This is another major attack in the region, as fighting between local militia supported by the Somali federal government forces and Al-Shabaab militants have been battling or raging on in the Hiran region. Last month, militants were removed from a number of villages in the region, and this which resulted in Al-Shabaab retaliating by burning wells that were built for local residents that were struggling with the severe droughts that have ravaged the country. Now, Al-Shabaab conducted its biggest terrorist attack since 2019 last month when militants stormed Al Hayat Hotel, which resulted in a siege that lasted over 30 hours, with Somali security forces being unable to apprehend the suspects. Now, according to recent figures, since the election of current President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, Al-Shabaab have conducted over 136 terrorist attacks across the country. Now, over to Zimbabwe, where Zimbabwe's measles outbreak has so far claimed 685 lives, according to the Ministry of Health. On Saturday, more than 4 times the cases reported almost a fortnight ago, even as a nationwide vaccine program continues. Now, the Zimbabwe's health ministry announced on the weekend that 698 children, to be exact, have died from the measles. And the ministry said in a post on Twitter, adding that 191 new cases and 37 deaths were reported in a single day on the 1st of September. Now, primarily children aged between 6 months and 15 years old were succumbing to the disease, especially those from religious sects who do not believe in vaccination, the country's information minister Monica said last month. Now, according to the government claims, apostolic sects do not believe in vaccination and rely solely on prayers, and the apostolic church leaders have not reacted to government claims that their beliefs are responsible for a high spread of measles. Now, the death toll from measles outbreak in Zimbabwe has reached nearly 700 children. Now, some are calling for an enactment of legislation to make vaccination mandatory in a country where anti-modern medicine religious sects hold sway in large swathes of the population of 15 million people. The measles outbreak was first reported in the eastern Manicaland province in early April and has since spread to all parts of the country. Now, many of the deaths have been children who were not vaccinated, according to the ministry's information minister. And Zimbabwe's cabinet has invoked a law used to respond to disasters to deal with the outbreak. Now, the government has embarked on a mass vaccination campaign targeting children aged between 6 months and 15 years and are trying to engage with traditional and faith leaders to support the drive. Now, over to West Africa in Mali, where 3 women who were among the 49 Ivorian soldiers detained in Mali were released on Saturday, according to state television. Now, it's been around 7 weeks since the arrest of the troops, which sparked diplomatic spats between West African countries. Now, soldiers were detained at the Malian capital Bamako International Airport on July 10th. Now, Mali's government, or military government, so to say, said they had flown in without permission and were seen as mercenaries. Now, it was July 12th when Ivorian government demanded the release of 49 of its soldiers arrested in Mali, an incident that had worsened tensions between Mali's military rulers and ECOWAS, which is the West African Organization of African Nations, amid efforts to quell an Islamist insurgency in the country as well and restore democratic rule. Now, Ivorian soldiers were arrested on the 10th, and Mali's military government said the troops arrived without permission. Now, the junta said the military soldiers were considered mercenaries and charged as such, and the Ivorian authorities were unaware even of their arrival. But the Ivorian government said the soldiers were deployed as part of a security and logistics support contract signed with the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Mali in July 2019, and it demanded their release. Now, both Malian and Ivorian state TV said 3 women in the group had been freed. The women are expected to fly to Ivory Coast's commercial capital, Abidjan, via Togo later on Saturday, according to Ivorian broadcaster, which gave no further details. And the military junta ruling Mali since August 2020 has been at odds with regional and international neighbors for failing to hold promised elections and delaying a return to constitutional rule. Now, finally, over to Ethiopia, where as the TPLF war continues in the northern part of the country, conflict is beginning to leak into other parts of the country. Now, gunmen killed at least 42 people in Ethiopia's Oromia region. 2 residents who buried their bodies in mass graves have told Reuters news agency amid escalating violence that has left hundreds dead. Now, the latest attack by an armed group against local residents occurred on Tuesday in the Amuru district, about 370 kilometers west of the capital, Addis Ababa. And the witnesses on Friday said the victims were all Oromos and described the attackers as members of a volunteer group known as Fano, mostly composed of the ethnic Amharas. Now, one resident who spoke to Reuters by telephone but asked not to be named said the locals had burned 22 people in one place, 15 in another, and 5 in a third spot. And the second resident said he compiled a list of 49 dead people, but said the attackers carried rifles and numbered around 150 to 200. They were speaking Amharic and wore Mamesh uniforms. Now, clashes between the Oromo and the Amhara, Ethiopia's 2 largest ethnic groups, have been rising in recent months. Now, the Oromo region has experienced years of violence amid accusations of neglect by the federal government in Addis Ababa. Now, Oromos account for more than 1/3 of Ethiopia's total population of about 110 million people, and this incident could probably ignite worse ethnic tensions in the country. Now, that's all of our top stories here on the African Weekly Roundup. Please join in next week where we'll talk about more events across the African continent.